Hello everyone, welcome to What If Quirkless Deku Got the Powers of All 6 Infinity Stones movie. Before we start, please go support ancalagonintheblack for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Deku is a male in this story. Chapter 1. In the world, people managed to develop something like quirks, although the important thing was that these only affected women, therefore it did not matter what happened since they took control of everything, although soon it was going to change by a young man captured by the villains who at this moment entered a strange place where they came to do certain things with the same boy they came to capture in one way or another, since it was often easy to have slaves who went to a man who came to seem like a kind of secretary. Villain 1. Hey, we need to leave this kid somewhere. Villain 2. We have to have something good, or at least that's what we want. Man. If I'm not mistaken, there's a place where you can leave him. It's at the back of everything. Come on, you have to take him. Izuku. I don't understand what's happening, please explain it to me, I don't understand anything, please. At that point he saw a man wearing a lab coat begin to approach. Man. Hey doctor, you're supposed to be doing your thing, it's strange to see you around here. Doctor? Let's say I'm just looking at the cages, that everything is fine, you know you have to make sure there is enough to carry out the experiment, it's important. Izuku. What do you mean, experiment? I don't understand what's happening, please explain it to me, I don't want to be in this place, I want to leave. The doctor, seeing how upset the young man was, could only approach him and kneel down at his level. Doctor. Look, young man, you'll only be staying here for a while. If you manage to cooperate and everything goes well, then you'll be able to leave. Otherwise, we'll have to take extreme measures. Take him away. Izuku. Wait, what should I do? What are they talking about? Where are they taking me? These were Izuku's questions until he passed through a rather large door just to see that he was in a rather large place similar to a prison, since everywhere there were cells with children, boys, teenagers and men inside them. Villain. I hope you like your home. Izuku. What is this place? Villain. I already told you, your new home, something that you will love, and I am serious, you will like all this, you will make many friends. He walked until he found himself in front of a robot which was in the center of the place with a computer writing on it. Robot. A new tenant. Villain. Yeah, whatever, just tell me where to leave it and where to take my money, nothing more than that. Robot. Almost all sections are complete, take it to section Z. Villain. Okay. He began to walk while little by little he noticed how on large walls along the corridors there were letters, and each one of these had different men. All of that had to happen until he reached part Z, where he walked to the back of the place to get to his cell, where upon entering he simply took out the boy, letting him fall to the floor. Izuku. Hey, you can't leave me in this place. Villain. Well, late, I hope you love your new home. He said this to close the cell door on the boy, who only grabbed the bars. Izuku. Damn. Child. So you're new, nice to meet you. Hearing that, I just looked to the side where a black-haired boy came out. Izuku. Who are you? Boy. My name is Ryu, and who are you? Izuku. My name is Izuku, just Izuku. Ryu. Well, it's a pleasure, Izuku, it seems that we are going to be cellmates. Izuku. Hey Ryu, do you know what this place is? Ryu. I only know that in this place they lock men up, little by little they take them away, and they never return. At one point I noticed how a huge steel door finally opened to let a man with some villains in and then closed. Izuku. What's in that part? Ryu. I don't know, nobody knows, because once you enter you never leave that place again. Izuku. If that's happening, there must be a way out. Ryu. Well, there isn't one, out of pity. Izuku. We have to find a way out anyway. In this way the days began to pass, in which Izuku became friends with Ryu as well as him. They were sharing their stories, making them know everything about each other, while the cells were becoming more and more depleted, until at one moment something happened. Izuku's cell was the last one, and his friend was taken inside that huge door. After 3 hours Izuku noticed how some villains went to his cell. Villain. Hey young man, it seems it's your turn at last, you even came so far, you're the last one. Izuku. Wait, the young man from before who was taken, I want to know what you did to him right now, I want to know what you did to him. Villain. You better shut your mouth and come here once and for all, we don't plan on waiting for you for long. The green-haired man tried to resist, but ended up being tied up and dragged by the villains to enter through that huge door, making him see a long hallway inside it. Izuku. What are you going to do to me? Villain. You ask too much, you'll see what happens. At one point he noticed a black bag on the floor where Ryu's face was shown, who had blood coming from his mouth. This clearly surprised Izuku, who immediately ended up throwing himself where his friend's lifeless body was. Izuku. Friend, what did they do to you? Please answer, friend, Ryu, don't leave me now. Villain. Come on, I don't have all the time in the world to put up with your crying, it's really annoying. Izuku. No, 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 no. The villain had to use a little more force to get that young man with enzyme out of that black bag with the body, achieving the goal, although with some difficulty despite the fact that Izuku was able to get something out of the body. The young man was dragged all over the floor until they reached the end of a hallway where they entered so that he could see an entire laboratory. That villain walked only so that they ended up putting him in a kind of table where they tied him with leather, preventing him from moving by having his feet, legs, arms, chest and head tied. Doctor. I can see that this young man really wanted to resist all this, that makes it all the more interesting in the end. Villain. It was nothing, a dead friend and you have this result. Doctor. Anyway, it's impressive what some people can achieve just by seeing this kind of thing. I can't wait to see this result, although it will probably be like the rest. Izuku. Damn you sons of hitches, I swear I'll kill each and every one of you, I swear I'll kill you all when I get the damn chance, you'll see, no one will survive. Doctor. Fascinating, a child of his age with so many murderous intentions, this is truly impressive and interesting at the same time, I'm excited to begin this stage once and for all. Woman. So you think this will be enough? Doctor. Oh Miss All for one, it is truly a pleasure to see you as always, you do not know how grateful I am for your presence. He said this while looking at the villain with almost beautiful features and long black hair, who only had a smile while looking at the young man with green hair, who was only trying to show a little resistance under the gazes of everyone who approached. All for one. This young man is interesting, I have a good feeling about him. Doctor. Yes, like I had in the rest, but they only ended up dead. All for one. I understand that we have been putting small doses into the bodies of those test subjects lately, but I would like to test all the doses on this boy only and in full. Doctor. But teacher, it's too much. If a small dose manages to kill an adult with just one dose, then everything will make that child explode. Besides, it's the only thing in the whole world that we can't waste this on a child. All for one. Yes, I know it pretty well, but I have a good impression on this kid. I've been keeping an eye on him and he seems to have a potentially compromising future for everyone. She said this as she caressed Izuku's head who had a gag in his mouth and had a look of pure anger with great hatred towards everyone in the laboratory, causing the woman to only smile at this. Doctor. Teacher, we can't base ourselves on something like that. All for one. Look doctor, if I have you, it's so you can follow my orders, now do what I ask of you. Doctor. Okay. He said this as he walked close to a panel. Izuku was given a mask so he could breathe, while that metal table was lifted with the help of chains, elevating him into the air to put him inside a tank of water. All for one. Alright doctor, you can get started and you better use it all or your head will roll. Doctor. Yes, starting the first part. He said this while he was pressing some buttons, causing a kind of rather large syringes to start being poured into the water tank. Man 1. Starting with the second phase. He said this as those syringes were lowered into the water. Man 2. Moving on to the third phase of the experiment. He said this as the syringes began to be stuck into the child's body, who wanted to scream in pain, but couldn't because of the gag. Man 3. Now fourth phase. He said this while some contents that were on top of a machine began to drain that liquid, each of them had specific names, while they were being emptied to enter the interior of another machine through hoses. Doctor. Okay, let's move on to the fifth and final phase, mix. He said this as he lowered a lever, making it look like that liquid was passing into the syringes and beginning to enter the body of the young man who was now feeling true pain at such a thing. Man. Content inside the body 70%, 80%, 90%, 100%. When he said the last percentage, the machine started to show negative and error, making everyone alarmed about such a thing. Doctor. Disable everything now. Everyone did as requested, beginning to deactivate things at full speed, while everything began to return to normal before the eyes of villain number 1, who had a smile on her face at what she was imagining, until everything was back to normal. All for one. How was it? Doctor. Vital signs now. The man only showed through a screen that there was no pulse anymore, making it clear that the young man was dead, causing everyone to start to feel bad, because they used up all the liquid they had, and they had no way to have more of that liquid. They were starting to feel that way until the man noticed how that line began to go up and down little by little. Man. Wait, there are vital signs, there is a pulse. But that they watched as there were more and more pulses until Izuku finally came out of the water, who simply managed to get rid of his bonds. Doctor. Don't let him go. The men launched themselves after the young man who only seemed quite upset as parts of his body began to become those of a real monster, wings, tail, claws. The young man seemed upset as he went on to grab the first one by the head and began a massacre as blood and bodies began to fall to the floor. Everyone was dying and the young man was going to continue that way if it weren't for a blow to the stomach by All For One that left him unconscious. All For One. Interesting young man who finally gives good results and shows that he has enormous potential. Doctor. But miss, it is very dangerous to have him with us, just look at this, even if the results are good. All For One. You better start preparing everything otherwise everything can get worse. Doctor, what are you talking about, miss? All For One. I'm taking him with me, he's going to start having some real training. He said this as the doctor looked at all the carnage followed by looking at the young man who was lying unconscious on the floor. Chapter 2. After being knocked unconscious by the villain's blow, he could only stay in that state, while All For One was smiling as he just tried to carry him, watching how they ended up having the young man on a stretcher tied by all the members of his body, without being able to have the opportunity to get out or do something about it. All For One. Well, my future killer is right next to me, that seems great to me. Villain. Not at all, teacher, but I would like to know what we will do with him respectively. All For One. Nothing, we're just going to try to keep things calm as much as possible, let's try to keep it a secret so that no one knows, no matter what happens, no one should know about this experiment. He said this as he began to caress the young man's head, followed by his cheek just for him to smile at this, while he looked at Izuku himself and thought about the future plans he had for the green-haired young man, while inside his mind he was in a dark area, trying to find a way out until he heard a voice. Man. Wow, you really are in trouble right now, it seems. Izuku. Who are you? Besides, I can't see your body or anything like that. He said this while just looking at a lot of light and a dark body, without a face, without anything. Man. I'm afraid you're far from reality, we're in your mind, but I'm as real as the pain you felt or the near death you had, since I took advantage of it to save your life. Izuku. And if you are real I would like to know exactly what is happening, for example about your name, because you wanted to warn me about this, you wanted to tell me more things, but you couldn't because of me. Man. That's true, thanks to my passing, that's what's important, but the important thing is that we have to do something about it with you. Izuku. What are you talking about? Man. We better start with something like treating your wounds, they look ugly, and by the way, my name is God or at least you can call me that way for the moment in which I am. He said this as he made a movement with his hand causing the young man's wounds to heal, surprising him with such a thing as what he did. Izuku. What happened? God. It's a small skill I can do, create other things, but I need to talk about something important with you young man. Izuku. Okay Mr. God, I don't know where I am. God. Calm down, your mind is calm. I just put this place here to make it a little better, although I don't think it will have any effect on you. Izuku. So you are part of my mind. God. Nothing of the sort, I am a being of pure power who only wants to put some order or rather a small favor. At these words the young man just stared at him. Izuku. What are you talking about? God. You will understand me, look kid, there are 6 things that can make up this universe, and infinite power in the form of gems are recognized as the infinity gems. He said this while showing some gems, a total of 6, the first being a green color, the second being yellow, the third a more reddish hue, the fourth was a light blue gem, the fifth a more violet hue, and the last one was an orange color. Izuku. So that makes up the universe. God. Yes, the time gem, the mind gem, the reality gem, the power gem, the space gem, the soul gem, and the power gem. Izuku. Then why are you telling me this? God. Well, I could notice that lately there are certain people who think about having the power of the gems, and it seems to me that it is very risky for anyone to have it, that is why a young man who can develop this power to be able to use them ends up with you, although not 100%, because they do not have a limit as their name says, infinite. Izuku. So you're saying that I'll be able to handle their power, if I am not mistaken, I'll have the same power as the gems. God. More like a power similar to gems, little by little, you will be able to awaken that power to be able to handle yourself and be able to use them. Izuku. So you want a similar power to be used only by people who are going to want to use them. God. Exactly, I wanted to create them to be able to have order in the universe in case I can't do anything, so that mortals and others can use it, but so far nothing very good has happened, that's why I would like you to personally take charge of having a similar power. Izuku. How do you know it's going to work? God. I know because the power of the gems was specifically altered right now, so that whoever happens to touch a single gem is immediately informed that there is a being in the universe capable of having a similar power or just having enough skill to be able to possess the gems until touching the one of power, something that is almost impossible. Izuku. I don't understand why you want me to handle such power, I'm just a young man, nothing more than that. God. I do it because on Earth, Earthlings are somewhat interesting. Apart from that, I know quite well that you are worthy of possessing this power, even more so, and if that were not enough, I am sure that all of this is enough for you to be able to handle it. Izuku. Well, let's assume I'm going to do it, but I don't understand what you want me to do with them. Odd. Just try to live, and my reasons for choosing you is because I can see that no matter how much power you have in the palm of your hand, you are capable of maintaining that goodness, that part that makes you good. That is why I choose you, apart from this world being a little crazy with this. The subject of quirks is why I want you to take charge of developing this power. Little by little you will be able to awaken it. Izuku. And there's no one else who can handle this power. Odd. I'm afraid not. I'm looking for someone specific, and that's why I broke up with you, because I'm sure you're capable of using it. At that, the young man only had a serious look that was directed at God, who had a smile, although it was not very noticeable due to his darkness. Izuku. Then I accept this power that you want to give me right now if I can truly earn it. God. Wonderful, I just have to take you somewhere. I guess you need a little help, like a place where you can train those skills, apart from having a weapon. Izuku. What do you mean, a weapon? That doesn't make sense. Odd. Yes, I know, but I mean I want to give you a weapon, that way you'll be able to handle that power more easily, but the main thing is that you don't use all your power. Izuku. What do you mean I didn't use my full power? You talk like it's just so I can hold back. Odd. Exactly, it's the best, that way you'll know how to better manipulate your power, or it's something that I at least have in mind. He said this as he began to make a light, from which he began to take out a sword, the tip of which was light blue, but as he went towards the handle of it, it began to darken, becoming blue, followed by a dark blue hue along the handle, and at the end of it, it seemed to have a golden part. The young man only began to take the sword to stare at it, while he began to move it a little. Odd. How does it feel? Izuku. Well, it's pretty light, comfortable, I have no problems moving it. Odd. Then this weapon is of great use to you, just try to use it in a way that is at least good. Izuku. Then I just need to know where I have to go to train apart from being able to live in order to have a part. Odd. Well, it's in the mountains. But that the young man began to walk while the being began to accompany him little by little. Izuku. Hey Mr. God, I would like to know how long you are going to stay with me. Odd. Well, I'm tired of continuing in this universe. I think it's better that it stays without me, but it's better to have someone capable of handling the gems like you are, then that's enough for me. Izuku. So what about the people who want to have the gems? I mean, they must be bad people, otherwise I can't imagine anything wrong. Odd. Okay, about that, the first ones were the Asgardians. Their King Odin was thinking of using the gems for their benefits, but I don't think that was the right thing to do. Another one is Thanos. That guy seems to be preparing to come for the infinity gems sooner or later, and I need someone to confront him in order to avoid problems later on. Izuku. So there's no more. Odd. If there are more, only that soon you will know about the rest, like those people who die, among other things. At one point they came to some huge wooden doors only for them to open on their own, allowing them to enter the place, which was an abandoned Japanese place, only for God to extend his arms to make it finish rebuilding everything apart from being cleaned and having a more modern touch, before the eyes of the young man who noticed all this, followed by seeing God who lowered his arms. Izuku. So soon I'll be able to do things like that. I think it's good to know something like that, or I assume so at least. Odd. It's true, we just have to concentrate on your training, that way you'll be able to get stronger, and there aren't many options anyway. Izuku. Yes, but before you go I would like to know something about Izumi. At that the man looked at him with a slight smile at such a thing. Odd. Well, if I know everything about your sister, I don't understand what's so interesting about her. Izuku. I just want to know what you think about me. I understand that you are little, and that is why you don't know if what you do is really right or wrong. Odd. Well, it seems that your sister is good, she doesn't know what she's doing, but later on she'll find out that what she did to you wasn't right, leaving you alone, abandoning you. I suppose she'll be looking for you to forgive her for that very thing. Wow, it's quite a bit of sibling love, it seems. Izuku. Thank you for telling me that, now I am calmer knowing that my sister really did not want to turn her back on me for such a thing, she is just confused, but anyway, I am happy to know that same thing. Odd. I guess you want to know about the rest of your family. Izuku. Actually no, I'm not interested in the rest of my family, to be honest. Odd. So you want me to leave since I have nothing to do in this place? Izuku. Actually, I would like to end all this once and for all. Odd. Whatever you want, just keep things as they are. He said this as he began to enter the young man's body, causing him to begin to feel all that power, causing him to faint. That way, he would be able to learn how to handle the power of the gems over time. That's how time passed being. Time. can predict a certain amount of movements such as making small time trips in the sense with objects or bodies to repair or heal them. Space. He is able to travel to other parts by being able to teleport without having problems with this part. Alma. She is able to know about people, although a specific number of knowing where they can be found, just to be able to find them, although she did not use it much. Mind. He is able to know what some people think and can control them for a period of time, although he can only do this if he touches them. Reality. Becomes able to handle reality to a certain specific point, although not enough to change everything. Power. He is able to fly, make energy arrays, among other things based on his power alone, although he had a certain limit. That's how time passed for the young man who only spent his time training. Chapter 3. Years passed since Izuku began to be trained by All For One, who taught him many things. He even learned some things from the villain, apart from being able to handle the power of infinity, or at least a part of it. Although the villain in the same way managed to learn everything from the young man who had no choice but to pay attention to things, and sometimes he had to be inside an abandoned base where he had to stay, but everything was going to change. Right now the base was under attack while a person was running. Man. Please doctor, you must understand that we must not take any risks. Doctor? Shut your mouth, you bucking idiot, you don't know how important this experiment is to me. Man. You don't understand either, we have to take advantage of this time to leave, we can't stay. Doctor? And we can't leave this in the hands of those women either, it's really too dangerous. The man was running since currently only he and All For One had any idea of this guy and his enormous power. Before they arrived they saw how a portal was made in front of him, being the villain Kuro. Femme Kurogiri, she was serious about this. Kuro? What the hell are you doing? You were supposed to have left a while ago. Doctor? I can't let my best weapon go to these women. Kuro? And I can't leave you in this place either, besides, it's going to take you a while to open those locks. Doctor? You don't understand, this weapon is important to me, so let me take it. Before they could continue, they saw the heroines begin to enter and start running towards them. Waruko? Well, we'll have the chance to destroy some bones. Burning. I can't wait to get started on this as soon as possible. At one point the villain took the doctor to take him with her. Well, the women noticed how the doctor wanted to reach that huge door, but he couldn't, causing them to be left without it as they left. Waruko? They left, how bad? Burning. Yes, but it seems that he wanted that door too much, it seems that he has something important for the villains. Oh girl. Then we should open it as soon as possible. They saw the number one woman among all who only had her smile at such a thing. A while passed and all the villains were arrested, while in a room there was a girl with the computers being the director of the UA Nisa, who was trying to get to a topic, and it was to open the huge steel door. Nisa? I never thought there was something like this. Oh girl. Everything okay, director? Nisa? Yes, it's just that I can't seem to find a way to open it easily, but luckily it's not impossible for me. At one point, all control was total, only for them to see how the locks began to open little by little, only for them to end up seeing how it was a dark room, making them distrustful, so they began to enter carefully, but some lights went up, making them see how they pointed at a young man with green hair, wearing a prisoner's clothes, while he was wearing chains. Waruko? What does this mean? Oh girl. I don't know, but it seems that at the end of everything it seems that this is the work of All For One, those villains, or one said his name, therefore it seems that he wanted to use it for something special, luckily we were able to avoid that in time. The woman approached the young man just to be able to kneel down, while she touched his cheek, looking at him, who only had a somewhat lost look, or rather it almost didn't seem like he had a bit of feelings, even though he showed a smile, it didn't do much good for the woman, who could tell that he was lacking in feelings. Izuku? Hello, do you need me to do something for you? Oh girl. You better take this boy and treat him with care. After a while they found themselves in an interrogation room where Izuku was alone on one side and on the other, passing through a glass, were the women. Waruko? What do you want to do? Midnight? Not for nothing, but I think we should try to maintain certain things like getting closer. Oh girl. Possibly the villains wanted to use him, or he has something that interests them. The best thing is that we try to get everything he has out of him, but in a gentle way. It is noticeable that he did not go through good things. But that the woman walked into the living room to sit in front of the young man. Izuku? Hi, nice to meet you. I guess you need something from me. Oh girl. Yeah, we'd like to know what you were doing in that heavily reinforced cell. Izuku? Well, for a long time the villains, or rather a villain, kept me in that place, she said. I was important and she always treated me in certain ways, and another person who came to see me was a doctor, someone who was in charge of seeing me all the time. I guess they always tried to make me strive for many things. Oh girl. What kind of things? Izuku? Sorry, I was forbidden from being able to tell anyone. Oh girl. I see, then I would like to know since when they have you. Izuku? Since I was 4 years old they captured me and started everything. Old girl. Not for nothing but I would like to know the name of the villain who kept you and came to see you all the time. Izuku. Well, she told me to call her master or my lady, not anything else. Old girl. What if you called her something else? Izuku. Well, there are always consequences. Old girl. Well, I'd like to know what you know, like things you can do. Izuku. Well, during this time they trained me too much without giving me many reasons, but well, I didn't have many options, but another thing that happened was that they trained me in the art of passing discreetly among people. Old girl. How is that? Izuku. Well, they taught me to be a good servant without being able to complain no matter what happens. Old girl. So that happened, then I understand what's going on. I imagine you don't have anything else you can reveal. Izuku. Sorry, but I have nothing else to say. But that he saw how the woman began to leave towards where the rest were. Nisa. We've already heard all that, there's nothing else you can say, so we have no choice but to draw our own conclusions. Boruko. Give me some time with him and we'll see how it ends up going for him in the end. Old girl. No, he's wrong. When I saw him I could barely find him despite his smile, he hides too many things, and the last thing we need is for him to close himself off. Burning. So what do you suggest we do? Midnight. There's not much we can do with him, we don't have many options either. Old girl. Well, I don't know either, but without a doubt if the villains kept him alive for a long time and in a good state, apparently without mentioning that we heard the word of all for one among the villains, then it means that she is related to this young man, and he is more important than it may seem to her. Obviously they are going to go after him again. Mount Lady. So you advise us to hide it from the villains, but we don't know how to do it. Nisa. I do know how to do it, we can introduce it into my academy this year. I was going to try a new modality by putting servants in the classes starting with one class, and if it goes well, then we can continue in that way. With that we can begin introducing the young man in that part. Old girl. Sounds good, apart from some like Midnight and I who are going to be teachers, so we can get in without any problems to be able to know exactly what is happening with him. Nisa. Besides, you said that he is very closed, that means that we have to make him open up little by little with us, that means that when we have the opportunity we will make him open up more with us. Old girl. We can actually do that same thing with him. Midnight. Let's not say anything else, let's do it at once. The blonde was able to go out to prepare things, but at one point she felt something, and it was that she looked at her wound, noticing how it was no longer confusing her. Well, inside the room where that young man was, he was with one of his hands under the table, while a green circle was spinning, so that he could then leave while he had a smile. After a while there was a limousine on the street, well inside it were all girl, Nisa, Midnight and Izuku, although he was able to change. Now he had a wine red shirt on with a black vest like his pants, tie, shoes and belt. Izuku. Not for nothing, but I would like to know why I am coming with you. Old girl. Well, we assume that the villains are simply people who will love you back because they see you as someone important to all of them, so we wanted to decide on an important theme. Nisa. We'll keep you safe so you can be at peace while the villains are looking for you, but you'll be inside my academy as a servant of class 1A. Izuku. I see, they want to use me as bait. With his words he only manages to confuse them. Midnight. What are you talking about? Izuku. Well, for now they keep me hidden while they look for me, but in the meantime when they can find me then they will be able to come after me, so that you can set a trap for them and catch them all. I'm just the bait, well enough to think about it. Midnight. What makes you think you're important to the villains? Izuku. Well, my lady told me more than once that I am more important than I seem, enough for me to risk many things, since I prevent many villains from knowing about my presence. In fact, I hid more than once in secret places so that they wouldn't find me, especially when it was a strange game. Old girl. What kind of game? Izuku. I don't know, it was strange, but she says we played police and prisoner. But that they had more doubts because it was impossible for a villain to do something like what they thought until they noticed how Midnight, who was next to the same step, touched his body a little without Izuku noticing, so that he would realize with the touch that the young man was really well worked. Midnight. Now I see why he wanted that game so much without a doubt. Nisa. Please don't behave like that. Midnight. I'm just making sure of things. Old girl. Now we're going to have a lot more problems than I thought with that touch. Nisa. By the way, old girl, I noticed something strange. She said this while discreetly noting the time, which the woman could only understand by looking at her. Old girl. Well, it's gone now. Nisa. What do you mean it's not here? Old girl. I don't know, it's just not there, it even seems like I'm actually okay enough to move. Nisa. That's strange even if it's good, but you're going to have to visit Rekover girl. Old girl. I think it's the best, I don't have any better ideas at the moment. He said this as they drove until they stopped in front of some apartments where they got out only to walk towards the same one where they were able to take the young man to a room where he managed to enter. Izuku. And what is this place for? Nisa. You're going to live in this place. In a little while we're going to bring you the documents that will have everything you need to know about classes like your classmates being the only men at the UA apart from schedules, class members, a map of the place, so you know how to get around among other things. Izuku. I see, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been a while since I had this kind of thing. Nisa. Yes, we can understand that, or so I think. Just try to accommodate yourself as much as possible while we will be watching other things if you allow us. Izuku. Well, that seems fine to me and thank you again for letting me live in this place, Director Nisa, all girl, Midnight. Midnight. And if you need anything you can ask for it whenever you want. She said it with a perverted look only for the remaining women to come and close the door while taking their partner away to avoid trouble. Chapter 4. The days passed in which Izuku could only accept things as they were, having no other options, and when he could, it was time to go to work, making him go directly to UA where some people would look at him badly, especially with doubts about his suit, which was a red shirt as well as a tie, shoes, black pants, belt, and jacket. Izuku. It feels weird having so many eyes on me, I guess this isn't going to be anything good. The young man walked until he reached class 1 where upon entering he could only stand there doing nothing while the students arrived little by little and only looked at the young man so they could approach him, although after a short time they moved away from him until he saw some girls start talking. Girl 1. Then you are someone who is in the wrong place. Girl 2. It's best that you leave, you can't stay in this place. Girl 3. Or do you need us to put that in your head? Izuku. Excuse me Izumi, Kasumi and Minori, but I have to stay, it's my job to be able to do this very thing. Minori fem Mineta Kasumi fem Bakugo Izumi needless to say. The three of them were shocked because the young man came to know their names as if it were nothing. Kasumi. Are you a stalker? Because if you are, I swear I'll tear you apart. Izuku. Nothing of the sort, my services were hired by the UA so that I could fix whatever was needed since I'm just a servant. Izumi. Yes, of course, you really want to end badly. She said this while grabbing the young man's shirt until they heard a voice beginning to stop her. Girl. Hey, leave him alone, he didn't do anything bad to you, apart from that it's true that he's a worker at the academy, nothing more than that. Izumi. And who are you? Izuku. She is Melissa Shield, a student and classmate of Class 1A. Izumi. Don't ask you. Melissa. Let it go, he didn't do anything to you. But that the girl left annoyed while the blonde approached the young man who only adjusted his clothes. Melissa. Are you okay? Izuku. Yes, this kind of thing is nothing new in fact, to be honest, sometimes it's normal for them to try to do this to me. Melissa. No big deal, but I'd like to know why you're the only guy in all the classes. Izuku. It's a new style that Director Nisa is trying to test, a servant who is capable of informing the class how to assist them in case they need their help. In that way it worked and if possible, if problems arise, try to calm them down if not protect them. Izumi. As if you can protect anything, you're just a man, nothing more. Melissa. Well, it's nice to meet you, and it's good to know that at least you'll be able to help us. Izuku. By the way, my name is Izuku, if you need me for something you just have to call me, and that way I can do whatever you ask me, since part of my duties as a servant is to be able to avoid your harm, as well as pay attention to everything you tell me, only you and no one else in exchange for a teacher or the director herself giving me the orders. Melissa. Well, thank you for letting me know that. At that point they began to hear something and it was a teacher who was beginning to come through the door. Aiza. I ask everyone to put on their sports uniforms and be able to go out to the training yard, we are going to do some things. Femizawa. With that, they all began to leave, leaving Izuku to stand completely still, unable to do anything but watch as everyone began to arrive while talking to each other. Uraraka. Why are we here? We're supposed to be at the opening ceremony for new students. Aiza. They are future heroines, they don't need that kind of thing, they are not going to wait for something like parties, and this before they come in when people are in trouble. Melissa. Sounds pretty reasonable if you think about it that way. Aiza. Now the important thing Kasumi, you were first in your entrance exam, therefore I want you to go to that circle to throw a ball, but using your quirk, try to use all your strength. At that the girl went to make the throw while everyone was surprised by such a thing while they just stayed that way, watching how the Ashen-haired girl reached a great distance. Minori. That was actually really cool. Kazami. Then we can use our quirks, that's going to be great for sure. Mina. Not only is it going to be great, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Aiza. How cool and fun, very interesting words which will make things more interesting. Whoever is last on the list for this exam will be expelled from the academy. At that, everyone began to get scared while little by little the teacher's exam began to take place, in which Izuku was only in charge of looking at the girls' quirks while he began to write them down, being. Melissa has enormous brute force although she does not control it. Bearer of one for all. Mina can make her body begin to expel a large amount of acid. Momo is capable of creating anything just by thinking about it and as long as she knows what material it is made of. Tsuyu has the abilities of a frog giving greater strength and flexibility. Toru is an invisible girl therefore she cannot be seen. The Uraraka is capable of removing gravity from things she touches. Giru has hacks in her ears which allows her to hear things around her. Izumi can throw large fireballs from her mouth. Kasumi is capable of generating large explosions based on her sweat. Shota half of her body can create ice, while the other can create fire, the left side ice and the right fire. Femme Todoroki. Minori can shoot sticky spheres from her head. Izami is able to harden his body to the point of rock. Femme Kirishima. Lady a girl who has motors in her legs so she can run at high speeds. Femme Lita. Pamui is capable of generating large amounts of electricity in her body to damage the opponent. Femme Kaminari. Diana possesses a strange quirk known as Amazon, capable of possessing great strength such as flight in battle and resistance. Perrin has a strange quirk like the previous one, being called Kryptonian, which allows her to have strength, flight, resistance, and cold breath like laser eyes. Natasa has some human enhancements such as strength, flexibility and speed, apart from having great aim with firearms and expert hand-to-hand combat. Peril has a quirk that works like a star, being purely energy in her body with which she is able to fly and shoot energy beams. Betty possesses something known as gamma rays. When she gets angry she takes on a form known as the Hulk, where her skin is red and she grows larger. Raven has the ability to generate dark matter with which she controls everything around her. In this way they all passed while the young man could only write down everything he managed to get from all the girls. Aiza. Do you have everything you need? Izuku. Yes, with this my work will be easier. At one point she managed to see how Melissa had her finger hurt, so she put her hands behind her back and making sure that no one could see it little by little, she began to make a circle of a green hue begin to appear, while the girl's finger only began to heal by itself surprising Melissa with such a thing. Mina. We really tried too hard with this. Momo. Yes, although I would like to know what position I could have stayed in. But that they saw how Melissa was left in last place, making the girls sad, while Izuku only managed to get closer having some bottles of water for all the students. Izuku. I think you're very tired, you better have something to drink. Melissa. Actually, I better not, I don't feel well. Izuku. I thought this was going to happen, please teacher tell the truth. But that they looked at their teacher who sighed as she began to look at all of them. Aiza. The whole kicking out last one thing was a joke, it was just to get you to do your best, and it worked pretty well so just keep in mind that the next time we try to do this again just keep in mind to try hard. Mina. It's too cruel of you, teacher. Toru. I can't believe he would actually do something like that. Izuku. If I may give an opinion, it is a pretty good strategy from the UA, but especially from the teacher for putting something like that to all of you. Uraraka. What are you talking about now? Izuku. Well, to be honest, when people are well and have to take a test, they don't give their all. When they are told they have to give their best, they don't give their all either, or at least not everyone, but everything changes when things are at stake, like being expelled. That generates fear in everyone and forces them to give their best, which is why they gave their best out of fear. With her words, she only managed to make them see how she told the truth, just so that she would continue giving them water, so that they could slowly recover from the exercise, and from the matter of her teacher's joke, until at one point without anyone seeing or noticing it other than those responsible. Izumi ended up throwing the young man's water tray onto the floor, just so that he would look at such a thing. Izumi. Look what you did now, you better pick it all up before I get angrier. Izuku. Excuse me for this. The young man could only bend down to start taking things, but at one point he began to see how Melissa began to help him as well as others, with Kara and Momo helping him with the matter of picking up things. Momo. I don't think that's fair. Perrin. Are you okay? Izuku. Yes, although I don't need help, I can do it on my own. The young man could only continue until one of the girls began to notice something between the young man's sleeves. On his right arm under the rock he was trying to hide a mark, a scar. Momo. Hey, what's that? When he tried to touch that arm, the young man could only move it away a little. Izuku. Excuse me for that movement, I better get on with my things, I have to take care of some things since the end of class is approaching, and I have to report things to the principal about my first day of work, she really wants to see the progress little by little. He said this as he slowly began to leave, since although the women treated them like slaves or trash, there were certain rules between them. Not to harm them to the point of leaving scars or marks, since the most they could leave a mark on was on their back for a mistake they shouldn't have made, and the punishment was whipping. But the brunette wasn't a stupid person, and she knew very well that the mark on her arm wasn't from a normal punishment. Melissa. Hey, is something wrong? Momo. No, it's just that I guess our servant is trying to hide something from us. He said this as he watched him leave little by little, since in the halls of the UA, the young man only managed to stop a little, while he slowly began to take out a necklace belonging to his old friend. Izuku. I'm going to try to progress, friend, sooner or later I'll be able to prevent more bad things from happening, just wait a little, and you'll be able to see that I'll be able to save them all. But that he was able to continue on his way, keeping his necklace, although a person stared at him, curious about it. Old girl. What are you trying to hide? There's something you don't want us to see about you. With his words he could only proceed to leave the place while thinking about the young man and how strange he was behaving. Chapter 5. At the academy they slowly got used to the young man's presence in the same class, being that he just stood there without saying or doing anything about it. Now he was in a part doing nothing but staying still, while the class with present Mick ended being that all the girls could only start talking to each other, although one in particular had some doubts about the green-haired young man. Momo. Hey Izuku, it's not for nothing, but I would like to know how you ended up at the academy. Izuku. Well, I can say that Director Nisa was doing some things until she managed to find me on the streets, so she wanted to hire me, since I had just been fired from my previous job. Melissa. And what was it about? Izuku. Well, to be honest, it wasn't that different from this. I was a servant, I was doing things like buying food, things for the house, being able to report anything, and my previous owner was in charge of making sure that I could take care of myself in case something bad happened, so she went on to teach me how to defend myself from anything against other women who wanted to abuse me. Therefore I was subjected to training from a young age. Kasumi. Please, a man subjected to training in that way is useless, in the end you will only succeed in getting yourself destroyed. Izuku. Not entirely true, it taught me many things. For example, there are few people with a quirk like Kasumi's, but however it taught me how to counterattack her quirk, since it has a huge weakness. He said this while the ash-haired girl was getting angry about such a thing. Momo. But he didn't do anything bad to you? Or at least to your health? Faced with his doubt, the young man could only begin to think while he brought his hand to his chin, beginning to think about that very thing and what could happen until he managed to get an answer. Izuku. I'm not allowed to talk too much about my previous owner, but however, as damage I can say that she made me too submissive to her. If she gave me an order right now, you can be sure that I will have no choice but to obey her. The girls just watched as the young man said the same thing until the brunette asked another question. Momo. Actually, in case I leave you with scars or something. Izuku. I'm afraid I can't say anything about that, I'm forbidden from talking too much, and what I said just now was too much. But that the girls were not going to have any more answers, and even less when they saw their teacher enter the place with her usual smile. Old girl. Hello everyone, today you have classes with me, therefore I need you to put on the outfits that you are going to need and that you requested from the UA. He said this as a box slowly began to come out of the wall, causing them to only get excited about it, so they went to change, while the young man just stayed outside with the teacher, who only had her gaze on the boy, having doubts about him. Izuku. Is something wrong? I can tell he's staring at me too much. Old girl. It's nothing, just that I can see that you are quite attentive to everything that happens around you. Izuku. Well, that's what my job is about, I have no choice but to obey the people who give me orders. Old girl. If you have any important matter to talk about regarding your previous work, if you can call it that, then don't hesitate to talk to me about it. Izuku. Thank you very much for showing that concern for my teacher, when I will be able to let her know about something important. If I find out about an important matter, it is part of my job. And that they saw how the girls began to come out who stood in front of the two of them, so they could only start with things. Old girl. Now are you all going to have a test with me? Mina. Isn't the test going to have an expulsion like Isa's? Old girl. Of course not, only Isa puts those things, the test is really going to be different, they are going to be fights of 2 people per group, villains against heroines, the villains will leave a bomb in the building, and to win they need it to detonate in time or catch the heroines before they can do anything, while the heroines need to try to touch the bomb as soon as possible to win. Lady. How will the teams be chosen? Old girl. It will be done by means of a random machine, so that they can have their teams already formed. But that they saw how the machine began to spin while little by little it began to show the teams being A. Consisting of Izumi and Uraraka. B. Consisting of Diana and Shota. C. Consisting of Minori and Momo. D. Consisting of Kasumi and Lady. B. Consisting of Mina and Carol. F. Consisting of Natasa and Kara. G. Consisting of Jiro and Kamui. H. Consisting of Melissa and Sayu. I. Consisting of Toru and Betty. J. Consisting of Kazami and Raven. In this way all the teams were chosen while the young man with green hair just stood there watching without saying or doing anything. Kazami. Then let's do it this way. Uraka. Not to mention anything, but I was wondering if you had any advice for all of us. Old girl. Not me, I wanted to know if you have something Izuku. But that they saw the young man who only had a slight smile as he just kept his distance. Izuku. Well, I can advise you to be careful with what you do because you should never be confident in front of the enemy, no matter if they look weak or not. Kasumi. What the buck can you possibly know about this? Izuku. No big deal, teacher, but I'd like to have a little freedom without consequences. Old girl. Well, as long as it's nothing bad. But that he saw how he took a few steps in front of everyone while he only went to take off his black jacket like his tie, followed by rolling up his red shirt near his elbows, revealing scars on his right arm, only for him to get into a combat pose while the teacher had doubts about the young man. Izuku. Please try to attack me with your quirk. Kasumi. You're going to regret that very thing. They saw how she launched herself against the young man in order to hit him, but by doing so, just by putting one of her hands in front of the young man to attack him as if it were nothing, he himself grabbed the girl by the arm to lift her in the air and then dropped her on the floor while he just held her in a grip so she couldn't move. Izuku. Now you can see it, a boy just left you on the ground without being able to move and at the same time subjected to a hold, that's what happens when you gain so much confidence. Old girl. Well, now that you understand this, young Izuku, you can go since your presence will not be necessary for the moment, if I ever need something I will call you. But that the young man just let the girl go as he left little by little, making it clear that he was not someone to be taken lightly, especially to the girls who were watching this, although a certain brunette only increased their doubts towards the young man. Izuku went directly to the cafeteria as he had no duty to fulfill at that moment, since in the same moment he saw how a certain conflict was being fought between one of the employees. Midnight. How is it possible that you can't give me what I ask for as soon as possible? Haminari. Please Miss Midnight, understand that we really try to keep things under control, but it's not as simple as it seems, and besides, the food takes a certain amount of time. Mount Lady. In any case, you must be able to do things as soon as possible, it is important that you try to know that. Waruko. I don't think so much violence is necessary, in fact he is the only one who takes care of this part, it is better to talk to the cooks. Before they could end up creating chaos, the young man went to the boy's rescue by getting in the middle. Izuku. Excuse me, but I would like to know about the problem. Waruko. And who is this? Izuku. My name is Izuku, I am an employee as a servant of class 1A, now I have been put on a timeout, but at the moment I don't have much to do, I would like to know what is happening to be able to calm the situation, that is part of my job. Midnight. Well, right now I wanted to have a meal as soon as possible, and when I ask if it's ready I end up with the news that it's not yet. Haminari. But he wanted to ask for things 2 minutes ago, we can't do things like that. Midnight. But if you want to get hit. Before the young man could do anything, he put himself between the two of them again so he could separate them. Izuku. Excuse me, but I would like to avoid problems. It is an academy, not a wrestling place. I hope you understand that in part things cannot be rushed, therefore I only ask that you can have some patience like your friends. Midnight. For that we need to be able to talk about a common topic as well as having something to entertain ourselves with. Izuku. Well, say what you need for that and I'll bring it to you. But that he saw how the woman approached his ear to begin whispering some things to him, and when she finished she walked away with a smile while the young man sighed and little by little put some things in his pocket. Midnight. Now I would like you to get me what I ask for in record time. Izuku. Luckily I am always there to fulfill the things that are asked of me, and luckily I have plans to prevent this very thing. At that very moment, he took some photos and handed them to the women who began to smile just by looking at them, while he slowly walked over to a table so they could try to talk to each other and see what each one would like to keep. Haminari. What did you do? Izuku. Calm things down, now I would like to know about your status. Haminari. I'm feeling fine at the moment. Izuku. Well, I guess you need help in the kitchen so I can go with you. He said this as he began to walk with the young man inside. Haminari. Not to mention, I'd like to know what you gave them to calm them down like that. Izuku. It was nothing special, I just gave them photos of myself with only some pants on, nothing more than that. Haminari. Okay. When they arrived at the kitchen they only saw those present being Kirishima, Bakugo, Shinso and Mirio, who were only doing their best to cook as soon as possible. Kirishima. Hey, I see you're still in one piece. Haminari. Yes, luckily I was able to meet him, his name is Izuku, and let's say he gave us more time to do things. Izuku. It wasn't very complicated, but anyway, now I have to help you in the kitchen, I see that you're not feeling very well. Shinso. Well, a few extra hands aren't going to hurt us. He said this as he slowly began to cook everything they needed while they got to know each other, and when they finished they could only give the things to the women who only kept the photos. When the classes ended the young man was only preparing to be able to leave, although before that he managed to see how someone ended up approaching him. Izuku. Does Yayoi Rozu need something? Momo. No, and you can just call me Momo, although you only leave me with more doubts, you didn't tell me that you really have scars. Izuku. Well, like I told you, I have certain forbidden things to talk to you about. Momo. And I would like to know those things. Izuku. Well, I'm afraid that if I try to say it, there are consequences and these kinds of things aren't good for anyone. He said this as he began to walk past the girl as he began to walk out of the academy, without knowing that in the distance there was someone watching with binoculars. All for one. So you're in that interesting part. He said this while having a smile at such a thing as he looked at the green-haired young man. Chapter 6. In the green-haired young man's apartment, he just started to leave little by little, while he just tried to go to the academy, but before he could do so he saw a limousine start to stop in front of him, from which the director ended up getting out who only had a smile on her face. Izuku. Do you need something, director? It's not normal for you to come so close to my house like that. Niza. In fact, I do need something, and it is that you stay free for this day and accompany me to a special place. Faced with that, the young man could only do as requested by getting into the limousine as they began to leave little by little, and he remained that way until after a while, they managed to enter a house that was on the mountain where they entered. Izuku. It's not that I'm offended, director, but I don't understand what I'm doing in your house in the mountains, I'm supposed to be working. Niza. Well, I simply want to gain your trust. Izuku. I don't understand. Niza. Well, I try to get answers from the villains, but I only get nothing, but I know that you have some things in mind, you know things that we don't, and I would like you to share that same thing, especially because you have wounds on your body, scars which are not normal. The young man was thinking about what he was going to say until at one point he felt a slight tremor, causing them to have doubts, which caused them to go out while looking at three creatures that stayed in the air with wings while another was on the ground. In the distance there were about 4 villains watching how everyone was outside. Tomu. So this experiment is the one we must capture, or rather you must do that. Femtomura. Kuro. We know very well that they will be able to do it, apart from that they have the possibility of using our new experiments called Nomus, we know that Harley Quinn and Superwoman can do it well. Harley. Calm down little mist, we can do this, it's not going to be that complicated. Superwoman. We just have to catch him anyway, knocking him out is going to be the best way to do this, especially since he's just a boy. Kuro. He's not a normal boy, they must be careful and too careful when they face that young man. He said this as he began to leave with Tomu, while the villains only approached little by little. In the house they watched as the creatures approached little by little. Niza. We have to go, we can't face those things whatever they are. Izuku. But director, they're going to pass anyway, we have to do something else. Niza. So. Before he could say anything else he saw how the wingless Nomu jumped at him to hit him, but was stopped by the green-haired young man who had him by the wrist, while he slowly began to make him back away. Izuku. It's bad to hit a woman like that, go away you disgusting insect. But that, she hit him squarely in the stomach, causing him to end up flying as he began to cross the trees in his path, causing the young man to begin to stand in front of the director, who was surprised by such a thing. Niza. How is that possible? Izuku. Please director, stay here, I'll take care of the problem. But that he jumped and launched himself at the Nomu that was beginning to emerge from the rubble of the trees, only to end up with the young man falling on top of him, followed by him seeing how the other 3 Nomus were about to launch themselves against him, but the young man raised his hand, causing a red aura to cover some of the trees that turned into stakes that pierced the Nomus. Followed by falling to the ground, so that more things began to fall on top of him, as well as the Nomu where the young man was. Izuku. Disappear once and for all, disgusting creatures. The young man tried to eliminate them as quickly as possible, but at one point he ended up receiving a blow that ended up throwing him against a rock that he ended up destroying, only for him to emerge from the rubble, with his clothes torn while looking at the culprit. Superwoman. Wow, I never imagined I would actually have the opportunity to face a man with a quirk, this is going to be interesting. Izuku. Then you are the cause of this, I must finish you then. Harley. Don't forget me. The young man at one point ended up with a blow from a mallet by the blonde who only had a smile and went on to give him another blow, causing him to step back, and before he continued with another blow, his mallet was taken by the hand of the young man, who before he could do anything, ended up receiving a blow from Superwoman, who put a foot on top of him not letting him move. Superwoman. Now that I see you better, I think it's much better that I take advantage of that body to have a little fun. Harley. Hey, you can't be the only one who gets to have fun, I want some of the prize money. Superwoman. Sounds good to me, but don't try to get ahead, you're in second. Before she could do anything, a bolt of lightning struck her, causing her to jump off the young man, only for Harley to dodge the other shots to see how the director was with some kind of weapon like a machine gun in the house. Nisa. Don't think that this house is harmless, I have many plans, and among them is to be able to keep things safe in case of an attack. Superwoman. Man, do you really think you're going to stop me with that? Maybe the blonde, but not me. The girl tried to throw herself against him, but before she could get there her leg was grabbed by the young man who wouldn't let her move forward. Izuku. If you want, we can pick up where we left off. But that he proceeded to throw her back where she came from, while only the bones in her body began to crack. Nisa. I guess you'll take care of her, I can handle the one that's left. Izuku. Sounds good to me. In this way he launched himself against Superwoman who, upon getting up, saw how the boy went against her to collide with her, causing her to fall to the ground again, while she could only get up while looking at the boy for such a thing. Superwoman. So you actually hit on a beautiful girl. Izuku. I would like to avoid that problem if possible, but if I don't have another option, then I don't see why not. But that he saw how he lowered his hand, causing the place where he was to begin to have a celestial aura, only for him to end up kneeling before the young man. Superwoman. How is this possible? You really proved to be a matter of real difficulty. Izuku. Thanks for that, and if we already fix it, I would like to end this fight as soon as possible. The girl only saw how a kind of violet power ended up coming out of her hand that hit her squarely so that she flew out of the place, all seen by Harley, who alone did not have many options but to leave, causing the young man to end up returning to the director. Nisa. Well, I guess they're gone, but I need more answers about this. Izuku. Well, it seems they came for me, they wanted to capture me. Nisa. Yes, I could see it, but what I don't understand is what happened. You just demonstrated a quirk, or rather, more than one. Izuku. Then I guess it's time to tell you some very important things. But that he began to walk inside the house where he was able to tell her about his life when they ended up capturing him so they could begin to experiment with his body by surviving the first part of the experiment, and in that way he began to be all for one servant, making it clear why above all they wanted to take him with them. Nisa. So that's why they tried to capture you, and the reasons why you were in such advanced security. You are an experiment that killed many men, child, and right now the only one who managed to survive. Izuku. I'm afraid so, those are the reasons. I hope you can understand why I kept it a secret all this time, and I prefer it to remain that way. He said this as he went to take out his friend's necklace which he was just looking at. Nisa. Well, at least I would like you to tell me where those places are where we can start going after the villains, it could be very useful. Izuku. I'm afraid I don't know, all the time they used a portal where they took me out of the place and kept me under surveillance to prevent me from escaping, and if I tried to tell someone about this the villains were going to kill more people. Nisa. I think it's good that you do that, and at least you can explain to me why you don't tell me anything, even though I would like to know about your quirk. That way, I can have a much simpler way to help you. Izuku. I'm afraid it's not that simple, I guess it's called infinity. Nisa. And why do you call it that? Izuku. Well, it lets me control the 6 things that make up the universe. Power, reality, space, soul, mind, time. With that, I can start to get better, although the bad thing is that I can't use it to its full potential. Nisa. Well, I'd like you to explain that to me because I don't think it's just something simple. Izuku. Well, the space one lets me create portals like making some objects move out of place. The mind one lets me control people, although for that I have to touch them directly. The soul one lets me know about a certain number of people where they can be. Power is like it says I can use it to attack with large amounts of energy. The reality one lets me change things like shapes that are around me, and the time one lets me make things return to their before state. That way I can avoid a greater amount of possible damage. With his words, but especially with that of time, he only managed to realize one thing in particular. Nisa. So it's not for nothing, but when we interrogate you, all girl, healthy from a wound from years ago, I would like to know if you were the cause of that same thing. Izuku. Yes, I just saw that he was feeling bad, and I wanted to heal his wound so that he could feel better, nothing more than that. Nisa. I see, so you really took care of keeping things under control, you just tried to help us during all this time. Izuku? Yes, I'm just trying to help as much as possible to be able to find in one way or another those people that the League of Villains tried to threaten me with that they were going to kill. If I manage to save them, then they will have no way to continue controlling me, although in any case the problem is all for one, she still has the potential to control me with or without people. But that the director could only look at the young man trying to think about the matter, well she could only smile at such a thing. Nisa? Then let me help you, sooner or later you will be able to free all those people, and if you can't have any other choice but to fall under All for One's control, then we will do everything possible to prevent you from ending up worse than before. Izuku. Thank you for this, director, I really appreciate it, I just want you to keep this as a secret, people can't see that suddenly someone with so much power comes out, especially being a man. Nisa. I completely understand, when the time comes you will be able to let the world see this, although we must think of a way to prove that there is a man with a quirk. But that thought, the young man could only think of one thing. Izuku. Well, I think I have a plan, but I need a suit. He said this with a smile, while elsewhere Class 1 was having trouble with the infiltrator alarm activated. Kasumi. Where is our servant? Izumi. Damn, when you need him the most, he's not there. I swear I'll kill him if I do that on purpose. He said this while they were alone among all the students without being able to do anything about it. Chapter 7. At the USJ they were in some topics since the girls only came to talk to each other, especially about their quirks, although a brunette could not connect all the things being curious about her servant's past, something that she was possibly going to ask the director about the young man being, that they could not continue thinking about that same thing, since she was interrupted by one of her friends. About her curiosity. Melissa. Hey, are you okay? Momo. Yes, I was just thinking about some things, nothing more than that. Shota. And it was noticeable that you were quite thoughtful, although I suppose we should see other things because at any moment we will arrive at the USJ. Momo. Maybe. Shota. Besides, now I can see that we really won't have our servant in the heroine classes, for the simple reason that we found ourselves without him twice in a row in this type of classes. Minori. It sounds like someone wants to pay a visit to a certain boy. Kazami. Although I can't deny that my brother recently told me about him, he told me something about how he is a good cook and that he saved them from being beaten by the teachers. Karen. So let's not say any more, we will be able to visit him soon to find out what is happening, because this is the second time in a row that we have been without him. Kasumi. Yesterday we needed your presence to calm things down, now you really are in trouble. Izumi. Now I can't wait any longer for when we go to where he lives. He said this while they were thinking about that until they saw how they arrived at the USJ, so they went out to be able to enter the place, even though they only saw the inside of it. Kazami. Wow, this place is pretty big. Diana. I guess we can have a good training session in this place. Eddie. This is definitely going to be pretty cool. 13. Exactly, we will be able to train with their quirks. These were the teacher's words as she approached the class until she saw Aiza slowly starting to approach it. 13. Where is she? Aiza. I don't know, the director wanted her presence as soon as possible, so I don't know anything. But that they could only continue with the class. 13. Students, in this place we are going to learn very important things, especially about the issue of controlling your quirks, since as you know some of our quirks are very dangerous that can even kill, that is why we made this place where you will be able to control them with natural accidents. He said this while pointing to the areas just so they could go, but before they even got to lower the lights began to fail, while little by little a portal began to emerge from the place where a group of villains began to emerge, and everything when the lights ended up exploding. Kazami. It even has its own villains, this is great. Raven. Much better, a more realistic training. Aiza. No, they are real villains. 13. Get the students out of the place, and I will take care of them. She said this as she began to rush into the battlefield, while the teacher only began to do as requested, but before they left, they only ended up being surrounded by Kuro, who had a smile, even though it wasn't noticeable. Kuro. Excuse me, we are the League of Villains, and we came to kill all girl, but since she is not there, we will have to kill some students to make her come. Before she could take them from the place she began to float, which was something strange for the villain herself, since she was not moving any part of her muscle, until she noticed how a hand was on her metal part which she took advantage of to throw her away. They all saw how a young man fell to the ground who had a black shirt with black gloves, pants of the same color as well as a hood, black military boots, ending with a kind of glasses attached to the black suit so that they would not see his eyes, all while he found some green lines on his body. Needless to say, that way it ended up being Izuku's suit, who just began to walk through the group. Mina. Who is that? 13. She is not among the heroines in any way. Izuku. Everyone try to leave as soon as possible, this place is dangerous. Part of her voice was distorted by a device, but they managed to notice that she was more of a man than a woman, making her hex clear, just so that some would feel offended by receiving orders from someone who is supposed to be inferior. 13. Hey, first we would like to know who you are. The young man did not respond, he only jumped onto the battlefield where Izuku was about to receive a blow from the Nomu, but he ended up with his arm crushed and the floor destroyed because of the young man who fell on top of him, taking advantage of the distance to give him a direct hit to his face, causing him to end up flying and crashing into a wall. Izuku. What the hell is going on? Izuku. You better go with the students, I'll take care of this matter personally. Izuku. If you're really going to fight then you need help, that thing doesn't look like something you can handle on your own. He said this as they watched as he began to launch himself against the young man who only raised his arm, causing spikes to emerge from the ground that pierced the Nomu, causing him to remain still for a few moments. Izuku. You better go, that won't hold him back for long, he can heal his wounds, and these villains said they came to kill all girl. Izuku. And you think they're going to be able to do that? Izuku. Well, that thing is literally an experiment based on quirks of deceased women and men, therefore it is more of a monster than a human being, and it becomes stronger based on the blows it receives, therefore it is best that we can keep our distance from that thing until reinforcements arrive. Izuku. How do you know that? Before she could say anything, the young man took the woman and disappeared through a portal, avoiding a blow from the Nomu, only to reappear at the side of the classroom where he left the teacher, followed by leaving through another portal, only to go directly in front of the Nomu, who was looking somewhat upset. Tomu. Hey, I don't know what kind of technology you use, but you should know that it's simply not going to be of any use against my Nomu. It's the best I have to destroy everything in its path. Izuku. If that's the case then I'm sorry to tell you that my suit only serves to prevent as much damage as possible from being received. Tomu. Please you just used great force, created some spikes, and to top it off you made a portal, obviously you know about this. Izuku. In that case I'm afraid to tell you that I don't use a machine, this is what you call a quirk. With his words he managed to leave everyone surprised only to end up dodging a blow from the Nomu, although he spun around and tried to hit him with his arm, but the boy managed to cover himself in time, causing him to only be able to back away, something that the Nomu took advantage of to launch himself against the young man in order to finish him off. But as soon as he got to the front of Izuku, he grabbed him and slammed him against the floor, followed by kicking him causing him to end up crashing into a wall. But out of pity that was not enough for the experiment that only grew stronger as he launched himself against him to connect blows with the young man making a gust of wind. Uraraka. How was this possible? He's actually capable of using a real quirk. Sai. So it's not a joke, he really is a boy with a quirk. Diana. And not just anyone, but the first of all to have a true quirk. They all look surprised at the fight that was breaking out where the Nomu managed to land a blow to the young man's face, who only got up to continue hitting the Nomu, trying to find a way to stop him until at one point he could only make spikes come out of the ground to dig into the creature's limbs, thinking that he would be able to stop him with that very thing, but he only ended up watching as he broke free while trying to attack him again, although he put his arms out to avoid as much damage as possible while he was being pushed away. Izuku. I have to think of a way to stop that thing, I can't just stop it with spikes, this one is stronger than the other four that I was able to face before. At one point he managed to stop only for the Nomu to start charging at him, although it was of no use as the green-haired young man pulled out his sword before everyone's eyes to make a cut in the air, causing a violet wave to end up being generated, which partially cut the Nomu who could only roar in pain as he began to have difficulty regenerating his wound. Izuku. So that's your weakness, I guess with this I'll be able to defeat you once and for all. When he launched himself again towards the Nomu he was going to try to cut it, but a portal appeared in front of him, making him have no choice but to create another one to avoid the one of the villains appearing far away from the Nomu, who little by little managed to get up. Kuro. Sorry to butt in on this fight, but I simply can't allow you to just keep doing nothing like this. Tomu. Now I must capture you and take you to my master, I hope you don't have a problem with that. Izuku. So if I'm going to have a hard time, come on in full force. Saying that the Nomu ended up launching himself against him so that the young man could only begin to launch more cuts towards the creature that began to dodge them until reaching in front of him where Kuro was about to intervene, but the young man ended up disappearing and reappearing behind the Nomu making another cut with his sword, and he was not going to waste the opportunity to make more cuts against him only for him to end up falling to the floor while the boy only fell on top of him, despite the fact that he was beginning to have difficulties with the villain's portals, until from one moment to another, he went towards them appearing in front of him. Tomu. Damn it, he's with us now. Kuro. This is bad, it's going to cut us. Before they moved, they saw how the young man finished leaving them inside a transparent blue dome. Izuku. With this they will not intervene in the fight anymore, in fact they cannot generate portals that are inside this place. Kuro. This is bad, we can't do anything. Tomu. Anyway, my Nomu can't lose this fight, he must win. The boy with that looked at the creature that launched itself against him, causing him to do the same, starting to gather more power just to hit the Nomu, causing it to end up in the air, followed by appearing on top of it to connect a mallet blow, leaving the creature on the floor starting to heal. But he didn't have time for that, since it ended with the young man on top of him starting to release that violet power against the Nomu, hitting it full on without stopping for a moment, all before the eyes of the students who were surprised by such power of a boy who only when he finished left a destroyed Nomu on the floor, only for it to end up sitting on the floor while the creature was healed but just stayed in the same place. Izuku. I must admit that you really gave me a lot of difficulties, although it is still the first time I have used my power in this way in a real fight at this level. Tomu. No, my Nomu, he's supposed to be perfect, he can't lose to him. Izuku. Well, now he did it just in case, you see. Well. Before they could do anything else they heard the door fly into pieces as the heroines began to enter the place little by little. Chapter 8. The young man just watched as they all entered while little by little he noticed how Kuro and Tomu left the place, making him remember that he not only let them make portals in the place, but further if they were going to be able to leave, just so that he would end up upset with himself for such a thing. Izuku. Damn, I really need to think things through better when trying to figure out a way to stop them from escaping. Before they could go after him, he was only able to make a portal through which he went, surprising those who had just arrived and ending up in his apartment where he saw a special person. Nisa. So I see you had some fun. Izuku. Hello director, I guess you were able to find out about me. Nisa. To be honest, when we told all girl everything and then you left the place without any reason, I was starting to get suspicious, especially when I noticed that the suit was not where I left it. Izuku. Well, I needed something so I could go straight into combat. Nisa. I understand, at least you didn't show anyone your identity. Izuku. Well, I guess I'll have time to relax, although now I have to imagine that there is a way or reasons why I didn't go to work at that time. Nisa. In fact, thanks to the attack we had recently to capture you, we only ended up with the certainty of being able to have an excuse to avoid suspicion of you, that way we will avoid problems. Izuku. Sounds good, anyway thanks for this, although I guess it's better if the suit stays with you. Nisa. In fact, it's best for it to stay with you, at least that way we'll avoid certain problems, especially if you hide it in a safe place. Izuku. I just have a part of this apartment where I can hide it, if you allow me, I'll prepare something. He tells me that certain curious people are going to come soon. In this way the director began to leave without being seen by anyone, only for a while for certain students to start knocking on the door of the young man's apartment. Mina. Do you really think he's going to find himself in this part? Momo. Of course, he can't be anywhere else but his apartment if he's not working. Lady. But if he is doing other things like buying food, then there is no point in continuing this way. Momo. We still have no choice but to look for answers. At one point they began to hear a voice from inside the place, while little by little they began to hear footsteps. Izuku. I'm coming, please stop touching so much. With that, he ended up opening the door for the girls to blush when they saw how he had a separate body that had some scars that didn't help at all, especially on his right arm, like 2 on his chest, a few on his other arm, and the rest on his stomach. All while wearing a towel and pants with her hair wet, making it clear that she just got out of the shower. Kasumi. What are you doing like that? Izuku. I was taking a bath, I could barely get out of the shower, but well, I guess I should go change, I'll be right back. But that the girls just walked in without warning to the young man. Izumi. There's no way you left us waiting outside for that long. But that the young man had no choice but to enter, well he just watched as they went into his living room. Izuku. What's wrong? It's barely my day off. Peril. Well, like yesterday you had it too, and we weren't even informed about it. Izuku. That happened because of the director, since I am a kind of new program for the academy where I will accompany them for 3 years, I was left this way as a rest, even if it was a little. Eddie. So you just tried to get some rest. Izuku. Yes, although you should do the same to be honest, I found out that you were recently attacked by a group of villains, and it is best that you try to rest as soon as you recover from things. Diana. Yes, but we need to know some things before we go. Izuku. Then ask whatever, my work kind of starts about 2 minutes ago, and I have no problem working a little at home. Natasha. Well we need to know what you think about a man with a quirk. Izuku. I don't understand, if it was a question then I don't know how to answer them because that's supposed to be impossible. Perrin. But as always you have an answer to everything. But that the young man had no choice but to sigh while he thought about an answer until he came up with something in his head. Izuku. Well, if there was a man with a quirk, the logical thing would be for him to stay hidden from the city, staying far away, but with a contact in the same city to know everything, without mentioning that for reasons that no one is used to that same thing, it is better to hide for a while from some apparitions and let people get used to what they saw. Mina. So you say that for the moment he remains hidden without saying or doing anything in a few words. Izuku. Exactly, he has no choice but to hide. Melissa. That's pretty interesting, but now everyone is going to try to find it without a doubt. Izuku. Wait, so there really is a man with a quirk? It was the young man's clear question as he pretended to be surprised, almost receiving an Oscar for his performance. Peril. If there's a man with a quirk, we just hope he doesn't try to do anything bad. Izuku. Well, it's for the best because if he really has power it's for a reason, and if he has a quirk, it's for reasons that make it clear that he's going to do good, or at least I hope so. Everything will depend on how things go from now on. The girls could only listen to the young man as they began to change the subject. Momo. Now how did you get those scars? They're only supposed to be visible on your back at most, but unlike people, or rather all normal men, it seems like you've been through worse things by having all those scars. Izuku. Well, they are just marks of the past to make certain things clear, nothing more than that. Minori. At least now we have clear reasons why your body is so hard sometimes. Hamui. And that explains the same way when you explained that you were trained, but I never thought it was that bad. The two perverts of the class jumped while touching the body of the young man, who was only trying to remain calm in the face of such a thing, until they were tied up by Diana and Momo in a part of the apartment. Diana. Can't you stop doing that kind of thing? At least for a moment, that's all we ask. Momo. And please don't touch him like that again. Hamui. We can avoid touching him for now, but we can't say the same about her. At that they saw how Izumi was touching the young man's body even a little as if she were trying to analyze. Izumi. So the issue of good training to make you stronger really got deeper. Momo. Don't touch him anymore, we barely managed to calm these two down. Melissa. We definitely have more and more problems with this type of thing. Shota. Hey Izuku, I'd like to know if there's something you should tell us about in case we need to know. Izuku. Well, we have the matter of the sports festival coming up soon for which you should prepare and be able to train as much as you can. Lady. But we were recently attacked by villains, we can't do that kind of thing. Izuku. An attack that, as seen on the news, makes it clear that it failed completely, that means that the UA can hold the festival without risk of ending badly. Natasha. If that happens, we want to know if you have a way to help us train. Izuku. Well, I imagined that this type of thing was going to happen, that's why I wanted to put together a certain issue where I would watch their fights to see their flaws and how to improve them, luckily now I have what they need. He said this as he passed some papers to each of the students only for them to leave the place. Before he could leave to continue with his things the door was knocked on again, only for him to end up opening it to see Midnight, who had a smile. Midnight. Not for nothing, but I would like to have some fun, and this happens to me every time I see one of your photos or of you, because just by looking at you, whether with clothes or not, I can see part of that. Before he finished speaking, the young man could only close the door in front of him, surprising her with how he interrupted her as if it were nothing, making her feel rejected, and with more intentions of going after the young man who just rejected her, as if it were nothing. The next day everyone went to UA to continue with their normal classes, being that Isa was informed of the matter of her class servant making her, all girl, and the director the ones who know about the identity of the young man. Uraraka. No big deal, teacher, but we recently asked Izuku a question about the sports festival. Isa. So I told them what was going to be done, that makes things easier for me, just try to avoid unnecessary noise, since I'll leave you the rest of the hour free. But that she went to sleep while everyone was surprised by how their teacher acted, making them have no choice but to continue with their thing. Minori. Hey Izuku, it's not for nothing, but I would like to know more about what we can do to you. Izuku. Well, you can touch me however you want on any part of my body, and if I do something wrong you can punish me however you please, although punishments that are not real to take advantage of things like hurting or rape are prohibited. Hamui. That makes things less fun. Uraraka. But then we can do something like this. She said this as she approached the young man to grab him by the tie and give him a kiss, causing everyone to look at her in surprise, while some became jealous. It continued like this until they separated. Izuku. Well, if that is allowed. Minori. And what about this? The little student said as she reached a certain low part where the young man could only stay still while she only stayed away as she began to move away in small steps, although with some fear. Hamui. Hey, what's going on? In the girl's mind, the voice of the young man who was staring at her began to sound. Minori's mind. There's a reason they call me Izuku the Three Legs. That's how it went through her mind without knowing how that was possible while he stared at her, as if he was telling her the same thing, all until they began to leave, and when they left the class they were surrounded by other students from the academy. Karen. Now what do they do? Kasumi. They look at the competition. Izuku. I better take care of this. The young man began to leave little by little, while he could only get to the front of everyone. Izuku. I would like to ask you to leave, if it is not a problem we want to go home early. At that point he began to see a certain group of girls approaching, whom he was able to recognize thanks to his research on all the students. Najire. So this is the young man in the photos. Kendo. It doesn't look that bad in person. Satsuna. We can take advantage of this very thing. Momo. Excuse me, but what photos are you talking about? At that point they began to show certain photos of the young man, which he was able to recognize, apart from remembering that Midnight warned him that there would be consequences if he didn't give her any fun. All while little by little the girls of Class A began to release a black aura in front of the young man and looked at him angrily when they didn't receive it in the same way. Izuku. What do I need legs for? But that he ran out of the place, taking advantage of the fact that his work time there had ended. Chapter 9. Days passed since the young man began to spend time where he could only begin to think about the things he was going to have to do from now on. At this moment the young man was walking through a part of a place with the director of the academy, who only had a smile like all girl, especially because there were beginning to be rumors about a young man with a quirk. Niza. So things are working much better than before. All girl. Now with a rumor of a boy with a quirk, a search begins in order to find him. Izuku. That means everyone will be looking for the new hero as soon as possible to get answers. I guess I have to make my moves right from now on. All girl. In short, yes, at the moment they have no suspicion of you, but if they do, then I have a friend who is a detective, he can take care of this matter. Izuku. I see, then we can really keep things calm. I just have to think carefully about my next moves, apart from now with the villains, especially all for one after me, it makes things more complicated. Niza. I guess so, you can take care of the Nomas to keep things under control. Izuku. It's not going to be a problem, but if we keep some things in mind, like if a Nomu like the one from the USJ appears, then there will be some possible problems. Niza. It's true, we'll have more problems, but I'd better try to go with the class so I can tell them about the warning. But that the young man could only start walking, having some things in mind until he reached where the classroom was, where he could knock on the door where it was beginning to be opened by a lady who only looked at this. Lady. What's wrong? Izuku. I came to let you know that you should start preparing, soon Iza and Present Mick are going to say about the classes and how to announce them, you should go. But that the girls began to leave, well the young man could only walk away as he walked a little along the steps until he saw a girl begin to approach, knowing who he was. Girl. So it seems that the most handsome young man is spending his time alone, I guess you are too bored. Izuku. It's nice to see you again, Miss Najire, I guess you have a question or something. Najire. Well, I'd like to know when you're free. You seem pretty lonely all the time, and I guess it's better if you try to spend more time with some people, starting with me. Being alone for a bit could be pretty good. He said this as he hugged the young man and tried to provoke him, well class 1 had just watched this from afar. Melissa. It's that third year again, you really have problems. Momo. You better not do anything other than hug or just go further. Izumi. I hope this is like a punishment so I can make him feel a little bad. Kasumi. Wretch, he's really going to have trouble with me when this is over. From the stands the young man just remained calm as he just walked forward to get the hug off of him, surprising the girl. Izuku. Excuse me, but I have things to do, I never have time for that kind of things. If you allow me, I have to see to some matters. The boy just left while Najire just watched as she was completely rejected and the class began to celebrate how she ended up avoiding her completely. Izuku walked to a part being through the businesses where the food was until he reached a stand where the same UA cooks worked. Kaminari. Hey look, our savior came to help us and to think that we just wanted his presence. Izuku. Don't tell me you need more help with other photos because last time it almost ended badly. He said this as he remembered how Class A began to chase him, well he could only lock himself in his apartment, although it was of little use since they were about to break down the door. Kirishima. We actually have another more important matter, come on in. But that the young man ended up inside the business, well the boys just made sure that no one came by the place. Mirio. Well we guess it's time we could tell you a secret. Izuku. What happens now? Tatsuki. Well, it turns out that a group of men is forming in the mountains who plan to take power away from women so we can go back to the way things were before without having slaves, and we know that because we are in that group. Shinso. We want to tell you this because you seem to be a very intelligent person. To be honest, the heroines from last time almost discovered our plans, but by just making a deal with them, you were able to avoid problems later on. It's one of the things we're grateful for, and since you always have a plan for everything, we want you in on this. Izuku. And what are your plans? Mirio. We plan to collect information from all the girls in the academy, since they are going to be future heroines, we will know their weaknesses, and with that we will be able to avoid problems in the future when we take control. The young man went to drink a glass of water and then sat there silently for a few moments while he analyzed things. When he put the glass down, he could only give one answer. Izuku. I'm afraid I don't want to join your group, I'm better off on my own, and there's no need for you to try to reveal yourselves. Mirio. What are you talking about now? Izuku. As you know, a rumor begins to spread that there is a boy with a quirk, that means that the first man with a quirk has arrived in the society to change everything, and with that there is no need to attack society on its own, it can change thanks to this person, I'm sure he will convince women to give up these disgusting and vile habits. Haminari. That's true, we didn't think about it before when we had the answer to everything right in front of our noses. Bitsuki. That man may be very strong as they say, therefore we can ask him for help for the attack, we just have to look for him. At that, the young man with green hair ended up hitting himself in the face because of how they acted at that moment. Izuku. They are really idiots, they don't even know how to think well, they shouldn't do anything, they should just let that man change the things that are there. Mirio. It sounds a bit like you really don't want to join us. Izuku. It's because I don't want to join you, that's if you're capable of thinking for yourself. Mirio. So now we can't let you go since you know all this. They watched as the boy began to get up while he just remained calm as if nothing were happening. Izuku. First, I don't plan on telling anyone, it's completely their problem, not mine. Second, I'm sure that man with a quirk isn't going to want to join any of you, you can rest assured about that. The boy could only begin to leave, leaving them surprised by how he acted so calm, but above all, it was how he somehow came to know what that man with a quirk was going to want, so they began to suspect that he knows him. The young man with green hair walked around the place without doing anything about it until he began to hear a female voice coming from somewhere being a dark alley. Girl. Please Izuku come, I need you right now and you can't imagine it. Izuku. This voice, it can't be possible. The boy began to enter without anyone noticing, just looking at some doors in different warehouses until he came to a part where he could only see how a door ended up opening, so that some hands ended up taking him and leaving him inside, being thrown directly onto a very comfortable mattress, while that person began to get on top of him without leaving any escape for him. Girl. You don't know how much I've been waiting for this moment, I really needed this kind of things like you can't imagine. Izuku. Not only do you risk so much, but you take on your true form that no one has seen before but me so that all for one can see me. The boy looked at the aforementioned being that he had a white cap like his hair that covered his right eye, revealing his left eye of a green and grey hue, as for his clothing on his back he had a black-handled katana. The white jacket rolled up to his elbows, as if leaving part of the neckline exposed with black gloves that left his fingers exposed, as well as his pants-like boots were already completely white. That girl was truly beautiful despite being a villain from years ago, she still had the possibility of becoming younger being the envy of other women as girls. All for one. How many times do I have to tell you again, my beauty, you have to call me Maiko, my real name is better when we are alone. With her words she only caressed the cheek of the young man who was beginning to feel that touch that dominated his body, he still could not partially escape that control that she had over him. Izuku. I know it pretty well although I don't think it's necessary for you to behave that way, although I suppose that right now your reasons for coming to this part is to take me with you. Maiko? Not really. But that he only managed to make him end up confused while the villain came to stand to one side and he could only sit down. Izuku? I don't understand, he never refuses things, especially when he sends 4 nomas like 2 villains after me. Maiko? Yes, I know, even for me this is strange, and I don't know if I'm going to end up regretting it, but to be honest, I could always feel that you were starting to get trapped inside, in a way in which you could never express yourself with me, it didn't even matter how many caresses we had, you always stayed that way. So I thought about things and noticed how little by little you were starting to be more open in this place, therefore I'm going to let you grow until it's time for me to come for my prize and be able to take you. She said this as she just got on top of the young man to give him a kiss, making him feel those soft lips she had and her hands running over his body until they separated. Izuku. So you came to give me that notice only. Maiko. Yes, and I also wanted to come so I could see you work, even though I don't really like that idea, the best thing is for me to see you at work, at least that way we can get an idea of how everything is going for you. Izuku. Are you sure? I mean, it's not that it's a good idea or a bad one at all, but to be honest, I can only think that you might get very jealous and, kill someone. Maiko. You don't have to try to think about that kind of things, just try to keep other things in mind. Obviously I'm going to get jealous, but I'm not going to kill someone. After all, I have to keep up a facade for the moment that I'm good, even though there are chances that all girl will recognize me, but I know that if I have you by my side and show certain things, she won't do anything about it. Izuku. So you thought things through completely, you really do keep things under control as always, even if it doesn't seem like it. Maiko. I know, just try to keep things calm. In the meantime, let's go to your work. I'd like to see how you handle yourself. Besides, a while ago I saw how you rejected a girl. That makes me quite happy, at least you still have in mind who you belong to in some way. But that he could only open the door as they began to leave the place, although the young man was only beginning to make plans in case something were to go quite wrong. Chapter 10. At the sports festival, everyone was watching things as they were going since both the race part and the cavalry fights were done, and when they arrived with the young man, they could only watch as Izuku began to appear in the stands with a girl who was quite beautiful. Mina. Who is she? Izuku. Well, let's say someone I could have met a long time ago. Maiko. It's a pleasure to meet you, my name is Maiko, I was previously in charge of being Izuku's owner, I imagine it's pretty good if I'm not mistaken. Momo. So you were the one who did that damage to him. Maiko. Sorry, but I don't understand that. Momo. Well, the scars on his body, I guess you were the cause of that. Maiko. Let's say that in part I was the cause in the past, but that is in the past. Now things are fixed between the two of them, and well, I see that they are quite strong, I suppose Izuku has something to do with that. Melissa. Yes, he helped us a lot in our training, we just have doubts, for example when you fired him, it doesn't make sense. Maiko. Well, I had to go to certain places where he couldn't stay with me, so I had to kick him out for the moment, but well, I was thinking about having him back, although I see that it's not necessary. Minori. Well then I imagine you had a lot of fun if I'm not mistaken. Pamui. There is no doubt about it, you can tell they are quite close together. Maiko. Let's say that in part if we are quite united, I just hope that we can get along, even though we possibly have our differences. Izumi. You made us remember something, we need your help Izuku so you can deal with those in Class 1B who are becoming more and more annoying. Izuku. I'll see what I can do right now. Maiko. I'll stay a bit, I'm interested in getting to know them. The young man was beginning to worry about that, but he had no choice but to walk away from the place where Class B was, where as he passed by some began to stare at him. Hendo. Look at this, it seems like the boy is finally coming towards us. Izuku. It's a pleasure to meet you girls from Class B, I would like to have the chance to talk to your president. Raven. Well that's me and my vice president is Starfire. Starfire. What do you need? Izuku. Well, I need to ask you to stop bothering Class A as much as possible, they told me that you were bothering them. Dabara. Well, we weren't bothering them, in fact, it's other people who do that. Izuku. And who are they? Ryuko. Better said, it's just one person, it's Nita. Femme Monoma. Nita. Until you come with me at the end of it all, I guess you already know who is best for you with all this. Izuku. In fact, I would like to ask you to stop bothering Class 1 as much as possible, they will not be happy in this place if you continue doing this. Nita. I don't think so, they are nothing before me therefore they can't do anything against me, they can't even do something like ask me to leave them alone. All of this was seen and heard by both Class A and B, who thought that the young man was about to leave, but he could only get angry as he began to get in a more firm and dominant way, something that Maiko had not seen before in the green-haired boy. Izuku. Then they are nothing against you, but if I am not mistaken you did not manage to pass to the third phase of this festival, as for your quirk, you can only copy any other quirk by touching people something quite disgusting, if they ask me apart from apparently if you face anyone from Class A, you would surely lose without problems, since you will not be worth anything against some of them. But that the girl could only stand up while she was clearly angry at the young man who literally ended up insulting her in front of her entire class. Nita. I can't allow you to talk to me like that in front of everyone, I must teach you lessons. Izuku. Then go ahead because if you can't even prove yourself superior to someone who is supposed to be much inferior to anyone, then I don't think you can simply call yourself the strongest. But that he walked away turning his back on Anita who was quite angry at how he ended up humiliating her in front of everyone, while the young man just went back to his class, where the girls looked surprised by such a thing. Eddie. I didn't think you were capable of acting like that just to defend us. Izuku. I already told you the first day you had me with you, part of my job involves protecting you as much as possible in any way possible. Maiko. Then I was actually able to train you quite well, both on your thoughtful side and your body. She said this as she began to kiss him, something that two perverts took advantage of to get closer to the couple that made the rest jealous. Hamui. Wow, I didn't think you two would be so close. Minori. Without a doubt we can take advantage of these kinds of things to get a little closer, and nobody knows, but we could possibly end up sharing the bed as they say, happy all four. The blonde was on the green-haired girl's side touching her body, while Minori was on the villain's back starting to touch her, especially her breasts, being that she was only starting to get angry being noticed by the rest of the students. The young man luckily knew how to calm her down, thanks to the years he was with her, something that he took advantage of too, with one of his arms start to take her by the waist to bring her closer to his body, just so that she would calm down little by little. Izuku. It's not for nothing Kamui and Minori, but she doesn't like this kind of contact, especially when she's with me. But that, the two had no choice but to start moving away little by little, while Maiko only managed to come back to herself. Minori. Okay, but just this once we can leave them alone, but you won't be so lucky next time. Maiko. That is, if there is another one. Shota. There are still things that are not clear to me. Maiko. Then say it, I have no problem answering you. Before they could do anything, they saw how the door began to be opened by certain heroines who only came to the place to see how the two were doing. Nisa. It's not for nothing, but we need to talk to you alone, this is important. Maiko. Okay, let's get on with it once and for all. But that they left the place, leaving the girl of two halves with more questions than answers. As they walked, they only came to a part where they were alone so they could start the talk. Oh girl. No need to keep pretending, we know you're all for one. Maiko. So at the end of it all they discovered that you don't have a bad memory, despite the blows I end up giving you. Nisa. Why did you let her get close to the students, young Izuku? You know well how dangerous she is. Maiko. Don't worry, there's no need for you to act like that. I just came to see how things are going for the moment, although I can see that you're treating my cutie pretty well. Old girl. Just tell the truth, you're planning a pretty big attack, but out of pity I can't let you do something like that, I plan to stop you before you can do it. Maiko. Wait a moment, I suggest you think things through better. We are in a place where there are many civilians like your students. It is best that you try to avoid problems as much as possible. Anything can lead to injuries or deaths, which is very dangerous, and you know it very well. The blonde just stood still knowing that she had no chance of confronting him. Old girl. Only say the things you really want, you can't just stay that way all the time, and you know that very well. Maiko. I think you're failing when you listen, I don't look for anything more than to see my green-haired cutie sometimes. Yes, it is very important to me, but at the same time not only does that happen, but I'm also very interested in being able to be with him, you know, to be able to have fun sometimes. Nisa. If we let you do that kind of thing then you will avoid attacking the UA as much as possible. Old girl. Director, what are you doing? Nisa. Trying to avoid losses that we do not want. But that the woman could only close her mouth as she watched the villain smile and begin to walk towards them to face them. Maiko. We began to understand each other, to be honest, I didn't think we could have this kind of agreement, but well, I can try to avoid it. The problem is my successor, she really moves on her own. The attack on the USJ was not done by me, but by Tomu, she was the cause of that thing. Old girl. You know we can't trust you and you know it pretty well. Izuku. In fact, she always thinks big, she doesn't find any point in attacking an academy where there are only students, not even with all girl making those kinds of moves, but she wants to destroy you with her own hands, before letting someone else do the job. Maiko. Now you can see the truth of all this, I did not want to carry out the attack, but if other people do it, then it is not my fault, but it is the problem of the attackers. Old girl. Miserable, you really do this kind of things, but young Izuku, you have that power, you can use it right now. Izuku. But if I do, we run the possibility that those people will die or worse things will happen to them. I don't want to see more suffering among my people. Maiko. You see, he is between a rock and a hard place, you can accept the deal or not, in any case it is up to you to decide. They thought about that until they came to a matter where they could choose just one thing. Old girl. That's fine with me, I have no choice but to accept this proposal that you so want us to accept. If you really want to have some time alone with him, then we can allow you that, but don't attack the academy, and make sure your successor doesn't do it either. Maiko. About that, I can't, because if I do, I must reveal that Izuku is the young man from the rumors, and if that happens, it will make that clear to the rest of the villains in the place, something that they will all take advantage of to come after him, and I don't think his academy is safe anymore, with all the villains focused on his academy. Nisa. We think it's fine, let's just try to avoid problems as much as possible. Maiko. You roared, little one, a closed deal is done. He said this as he began to take the hand of the little director, followed by all girl, although the latter did not like the idea very much. Once the deal was closed, Maiko went to leave through a portal, but not before giving the young man a kiss who could only reciprocate to watch her leave the place. Izuku. Sorry for this, I really wish I could do something that would be useful or at least helpful to you, but I'm afraid that won't be possible. Nisa. Nothing is happening, you know very well that you really did your best to avoid problems as much as possible, let's just try to free all those people he has locked up, at least that way we will avoid him continuing to control you in the future. Oh girl. Once you no longer have any control over her, we can take advantage of this to take control of everything, and that way you will be able to get revenge and fight against her. Izuku. I guess it's a good plan, but I don't know if it will be as simple as you say, she hides things well. Nisa. Let's just try to think about this later, now we're flying with the festival, this is important. He said this as they began to walk away from the place while thinking about how they were going to get things out later, since it wasn't going to be easy with the number 1 villain. Chapter 11. The black-haired young man just walked next to the director without saying a single word about everything that was happening lately, since he was actually calm, despite all the things that had just happened lately, with the presence of All For One herself, the biggest villain of all. Oh girl. So the biggest villain of all came to this place, and it seems that she really takes a lot of interest in you. Izuku. Nothing new, many people are interested in me. Nisa. Yes, but some things don't make sense, like the case of the villains. It certainly doesn't make many reasonable things to have you as a being of great amounts of power, being able to literally almost mold the universe to your shape, as you like to do it, as if it were nothing in front of us. Izuku. I'm just a young man with a great amount of power capable of destroying everything in his path without problems, but I don't do it out of pure boredom. Oh girl. You're really not just doing this out of boredom. Izuku. Exactly, in fact the truth is that no, and it is that I can strive to see the future of how things should arise, in short I should only let things happen as they should be. Once they manage to happen little by little, the entire world will be able to find out that there is a human with enormous power, capable of destroying everything in his path, and more so when it is only a man as insignificant as me. Nisa. In short, you had an idea of what was going to happen, you know pretty well that she was going to come directly to the sports festival and everything she was doing, in short. Oh girl. But if you can do that, then we can stop a lot of bad things so they don't keep happening in a way that hurts us anymore. Izuku. In fact, I'm afraid I have to stop in the same way, I can't intervene in certain events if we want it to truly happen in the most effective way possible, and that there are the least possible casualties, because no matter what I do, there will be casualties anyway, no matter where I get into at the end of all this. Oh girl. But why did you heal me? Izuku. It's because I need you at your full potential for what's coming, I can't count on you if your power is half full, to be honest, but if I have you at the top of your current capabilities, then things are really going to be much better, and there won't be any need to intervene completely, it's something complex to explain, but in a few words, it's the best for everyone. At one point during the break some girls were walking around the place until they noticed the young man with the principal and the teacher. Nisa. Then I'm counting on you when the time comes, and I hope it doesn't take too long for me to help you. Izuku. Sorry, but you can't count on me for everything, but I may have to intervene soon if some things don't happen as they should. Oh girl. What are you talking about? Izuku. Well, I mean, I can't say it, but if you want, I can say it just to you. Oh girl. Going forward, you can say it totally within your rights at least. Izuku. Well, he's not going to intervene in anything if I tell him, but lately I think there's a man who is currently after the heroines, I think he's trying to kill them, so there's no choice but to stop him, but depending on how things turn out at the end of everything I may or may not intervene. Nisa. Then he must be stopped. Izuku. Not now, but he will be stopped later, we just have to wait, and if necessary then I have to intervene. Nisa. How will we know that you are going to intervene? Izuku. Well, I plan to wear a costume. Later I'll give you details of my outfit so you know exactly what I'm going to end up wearing to be able to move around the city. By the way, I'll be able to do some good things as long as I don't end up affecting part of the future. Nisa. I think it's fine, as long as these plans have to follow the course they should, at least they should be done. In this way they began to separate each one on their own path, while the girls on break saw how such a conversation between the important people of the academy and a young servant took place. Diana. How do they talk like that? Natasha. More importantly, it is important to know what they are talking about because it seems to be a matter of great importance. Raven. But we shouldn't get involved in this kind of matters, however we can't avoid getting involved if they were talking about the presence of a murderer. Karen. Not only that, he was talking about wearing a suit, so he says he's going to go after the killer without thinking too much about it, in short he knows more than he seems, we really have a pretty strange servant. Peril. In that case, when the time comes, we will have the opportunity to get in, we just need to know how to do it, nothing more than that. Karen. But we don't really have much of an idea of what they're referring to, especially when they talk about a future plan. Natasha. They must have an idea about many things regarding people's movements, and thanks to that, even knowing our movements means that they know perfectly how to carry out a plan that is quite effective. Peril. In that case we will have an idea of what is really going to happen, we just have to be able to continue in one way or another, but we have no idea how to do it. The girls just stayed thinking about how they could get to know more, while the young man with black hair just walked slowly to be able to watch how the sports festival was going to continue, while he just thought about a few things. Izuku. This kind of matter is really quite bad, if each part is followed to the letter, then I should be able to do some things, including being able to keep up with all the movements, although if Gigantamachi or the high-end Nomus were to be released in a nutshell, I really won't be able to do anything about it, I'll really have to fight harder than before. At one point I hear footsteps to see the group of girls who were approaching with a smile towards the black-haired man, as if they really had something very important with him. Raven. What's up? We were just looking for you. Izuku. What's going on now? I can answer some questions you have about school or the sports festival. Natasha. We actually have some doubts about you, among them is the reasons why we saw you talking to the principal and the all-girl teacher. Izuku. I'm afraid I can't answer those reasons, it's beyond my scope to answer, so it's impossible for me to do anything about it, I think I should regret it a little at least. Natasha. Come on, you must have something in mind that you can tell us, especially if you need a little temptation. The red-haired girl moved a little towards the black-haired girl, touching a little of his body, thinking that the old trick against men was going to work, but out of shame it didn't work that way, as the black-haired girl shook her off of him like any good gentleman who doesn't give in to temptation. Izuku. I'm afraid I can't say it, as much as you want to know more about this type of matter, I'm afraid it will be impossible to tell the truth, therefore I can't really say anything about it, I'm very sorry. The young man was thinking about leaving to avoid any conflict apart from using his time power to know everything they really heard, and it was going to be that way if it weren't because Diana's hand was in front of him, and when she looked at the black-haired girl she put her arm on the other side of the same young man, where she stared into his blue eyes. Diana. I'm sorry, but I can't just let you go from these kinds of places like that. You're going to at least tell me the things you really know or you're going to start talking like you have no idea. Izuku. And how exactly can you do that? Without offending her obviously. At one point he ended up putting his bow around the young man's neck while having a smile of victory, making the young man look at this. Diana. What do you plan to do with the director? What you were talking about to be more direct? The bow was beginning to turn golden as the young man stared at her, knowing he had no other choice. Izuku. It's about the future tests that you are going to have, especially once the sports festival is over, like the internships where all of you are going to be subjected to a different test with different teachers. But that, he took out the lasso so the young man could leave while the girls looked a little victorious. Diana. It wasn't complicated at all. Natasha. He didn't tell the truth, he just said that to get away. Diana. But it's impossible, no one can tell lies with my rope around their neck. Natasha. No, features of his face began to change in a way that showed he was lying, apart from that I noticed something strange to be honest, and it was that he didn't touch his neck at all, but instead he began to touch it with something light blue that kept it away, at the same time I noticed the same light blue color on his hand, but I don't know what it could have been. Karen. If it is that way then it is more complicated than it seems to be able to make him tell the truth, and we will have to find another way to be able to make him tell the truth, even though we really tried to do our best with your bond. Raven. Maybe, but now we'll rely on Betty and Natasha's knowledge to be able to make her tell the complete truth. Betty. It's not going to be easy to get him to talk, especially not a person like him who is quite closed off at the end of the day, because it's actually more complicated than you think. Natasha. It's true, we can't take it lightly, it seems that he hides too many things, and despite everything we try, he will always be able to hide the truth without problems, at least that's what it seems. The girls were left thinking about that because if they were really going to try to get the truth out of the young man, then they were going to have something complicated at the end of it all. Chapter 12. The young man was calm as if it were nothing to keep him from having to keep his current job, since he was just looking at some papers before the director arrived at the place, smiling as she always did. Izuku. Is something wrong, director? Nisa. No, I'm just checking to make sure everything is completely fine, without any strange things happening. Izuku. I can assure you that nothing strange is happening. Nisa. I know, I just looked a little. The young man sighed as he put his papers aside and looked at the headmistress. Izuku. She can relax because nothing strange is happening, since she saw Mrs. All for one, she doesn't seem to be able to relax at least a little, in fact it's the opposite and she is completely upset. Nisa. I know, I'm sorry about that, but ever since she showed up I can't help but think about many bad things that I would like to avoid. Izuku. Just like many other people, but he can relax at least this time, at least he can see that everything is okay. The young man was just trying to calm the director down, while on the other side, there was a group of men holding a capsule which they looked at as if it had the most important thing inside it. Man 1. Do you think this is going to work? Man 2. Yes, once our experiment is out of place, he will be in charge of finishing off the heroines as villains. Man 3. If we follow this old document of the villains about the possibility of being able to create a man with a quirk, even though it has many broken parts, it will not prevent us from using it anyway. Man 2. Perfect, let's get everything ready so we can give them the first blow. He said this as that thing began to open and rays were coming out little by little. Once again with Izuku he was leaving work as normal so he could walk to his house where he was just tired. Izuku. I can't believe I had so much work today. He was just tired until he started to feel something making him look up where he noticed some black clouds approaching. Izuku. That's not normal at all, but it seems I need to take care of it a bit. He began to fly towards those clouds where he made a transparent celestial sphere around himself to avoid being hit by the rays, just to try to find some anomaly. Izuku. It seems that everything is normal as it should be. Before he could continue he was hit by something causing him to end up in a cloud of dust on a mountain where another person was slowly approaching. Man. I hope that makes it clear to you, heroine, who is stronger. That man saw how a violet ray managed to emerge from the dust which almost managed to hit him. Izuku. I'm not a heroine, but I don't like running around everywhere just for someone to come and hit me either. Who the hell are you? Man. My name is Black Adam, the man who will bring order to society. She saw that man perfectly, a muscular person who was bald. His clothes were completely black and stuck to his body, along with golden parts like his shoulders, gloves, waist like boots apart from a lightning bolt drawn on his abdomen, along with some rays surrounding his body. Izuku. So Adam, why the hell are you attacking me? Adam. I didn't mean to, I just thought you were a heroine because I managed to see you, although they never told me there was another man with a gift. Izuku. Yeah, whatever, I imagine that revolution of men are the ones responsible for creating you, right? Adam. Yes they did, so that I could try to bring peace and true justice to this world. Izuku. And how do you plan to do it? Adam. It's just too obvious, to take down those heroines by force who were hurt by those innocent men and spread pain, so that they learn once and for all, that no one messes with us for years and gets away with it like nothing happened. Izuku. Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but from my experience during this time where I was in charge of living with powers, I can tell you that this is not the best idea of being able to do things. Adam. I don't plan on letting a child order me around, so you're either with me or you're not with me, that's what you do. Izuku. I think it's clear, I'm not. Adam. That's your decision, now I have something else to do. He turned around to leave the place, but as soon as he tried to fly, he ended up being received by a blow from Izuku that sent him to the ground, only to see the young man stand in front of him. Adam. What are you doing? Izuku. I already told you, I can't just let you go and hurt people, before we can hurt anyone we have to talk about it calmly, and I owed you that blow. Adam. If you don't let me do my job then you're against me and if you are then I will personally take care of finishing you off. He launched himself at Izuku, colliding with him and beginning to break some trees along the way, only to be stopped by the same man who hit him with a mallet, causing him to fall to the ground, thinking he could calm him down, but he was grabbed by the leg and repeatedly crashed into the ground before throwing him towards a part where he managed to attack him with his rays, leaving him a little stunned. Izuku. Well, I could really feel that. He noticed how a huge rock went against him, so he started to use a red aura to make that rock turn into bubbles, followed by seeing how he threw more of those rocks, making him have no choice but to do the same, so that each one turned into bubbles, surprising Adam who was left watching in his hands how the rocks disappeared. Adam. Amazing, I never imagined he was actually capable of doing that. When he saw Izuku again he could only see a violet ray that hit him squarely, causing him to be sent flying where he could only hit some rocks before falling back to the ground while the young man walked towards him little by little. Izuku. Why don't you just give up and we can talk about it a bit? You know, in a peaceful way. Adam. I'm not a give up person and I'm not a peaceful person either. Izuku. Why did I imagine you were going to say that? The man launched himself against him, causing Izuku to do the same, colliding with each other creating a wave, just as the floor cracked a little where they kept exerting force for a few moments before Izuku managed to enclose Adam in a green sphere where he moved much slower, so he took the opportunity to give a huge amount of blows to his body, where he barely finished taking out that green sphere. And the man flew out to crash into a mountain, and from a portal Izuku appeared again to hit him covered in that violet energy, causing the entire mountain to rumble from that impact that left a fairly large crater where Izuku was beginning to breathe a little tired. Izuku. I have to say, you are the first person who manages to tire me out like this, or well, it makes me use more energy than I have ever used in my life. You are a pretty strong guy. Adam. And you still haven't seen anything of me. Izuku. Please, just don't destroy anything else. Adam. I'm not giving up. He gave Izuku a punch loaded with his rays that he was barely able to withstand while he stood in that place where Adam barely tried to give another punch but was dodged by the green-haired man who charged his fist with that violet energy to hit Adam in the face, and the same thing happened as before, with Adam recompassing his posture to hit Izuku, followed by him doing the same thing, so that mountain began to have cracks from those blows where they reached a point where they just stayed tired while they stared at each other. Izuku. You're really impressive, Adam, but this has to end and you're clearly going to lose. I'm not using all my strength just because I wanted to have a little fun. Adam. I won't let you take me lightly anymore. I plan to end this fight as the victor. Izuku. You're clearly a newbie at this, you don't even have any idea of the power you can truly confront, but I do. Adam. Shut your mouth. He tried to attack him again, but Izuku was faster by enclosing him in a sphere of that celestial energy, where it became smaller until it reached his head, where Adam remained intact until he fainted from lack of air, falling to the floor while Izuku went to sit down. Izuku. It was fun while it lasted. He went to leave through a portal only for a helicopter to fly by Adam to take him away, and he stopped as if it were a video being watched by a villain. All for one. Ara, my Izuku became stronger during this time, more than I thought, and I can't wait to have him. He had a smile as he watched that recording, knowing perfectly well about the current power that Izuku had in his hands, but he had more questions than answers about the green-haired man. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.